So, good afternoon everyone, to all the professors. Thank you so much for being here today. In this research, I have studied educational migration. My particular focus was on Uzbek students in South Korea and their return migration pattern. Here's how I proceed with today's agenda, starting from the research background all the way to the results and discussions. Let's begin with the research background. Up until 2016, which was before the new government came to power, studying abroad was not a common thing among young people in Uzbekistan. And new government came and it eased the travel restriction. In 2019, the OVR system was discarded. It was a kind of an internal visa system, and anyone who wants to go abroad needed to get a government permission to do so. This also shifted students' mobility. In the past, many students used to go post-Soviet countries like Russia to study. This changed. People now want to study in developed countries like South Korea or Japan. Also, there is a huge demand for higher education, and this keeps increasing year by year, and the domestic market cannot keep up with this trend. In fact, only around 31% of the high school graduates were accepted to the university as of 2022. So if we see this trend in South Korea, we could see this change clearly in this graph. By the way, I myself come to Korea around 2015, and you can see starting from around that time, the number of Uzbek students in Korea increased significantly. In terms of foreign population, Uzbek students were the third on the list as of 2020, just before the COVID-19 hits. Seeing this trend, we might think that this is a good news for Uzbekistan because those students will be trained here, they will develop new skills, and they will expose to the new knowledge and experience. But the true impact comes when those individuals return home. Sometimes this is not always the case. Some people might choose to stay in the host country. If this happens, this will be a huge setback for countries like Uzbekistan, which needed their educated talents the most. For this reason, I decided to study this phenomenon by investigating factors that shape migration decision of Uzbek students. Once I identify those factors, I want to know how and to what degree do these factors impacted return migration behavior. If you look at the literature, there were few works focused on this topic. Some studies highlights the factors including family ties, religious issues, can influence the return intention, while others points out the factors such as social integration or economic opportunity as a key factor to pull the migrants to remain in the host country after graduation. Of course, there are lots of theories to explain this, but I need to adopt one core theory as a guiding theory in my research. I adopted the Lee's pull and push theory of migration. This theory divides the factors into two parts. Push factors are the factors that influence people to leave certain country, giving the harsh economic conditions, poor educational or political instability. Pull factors are the factors that attract people to a certain destination. As for the methodology, I used one of the mixed method approach, which is called exploratory sequential design. And by the way, this is a popular approach in anthropology, studying social issues. I started off with a qualitative research, conducting in-depth interview with 10 key informants, transcribing the data, coding, and did the thematic analysis. Based on the findings, I built my hypothesis and developed the survey questions. After collecting the survey questions, I needed to do a regression analysis to further validate my findings. If you look at the qualitative research results, these are the emerging themes. Each theme has a certain codes assigned to it, and these which can be less or more useful in our quantitative part of the research. For example, these religious issues, obstacles in going back home, pulling factors or pushing factors are the factors that can be relevant to our research. But we have also other issues such as student issues, personal growth, or financial vulnerability, which are less relevant to our research. So based on the careful selection, we come up with this following hypothesis. Hypothesis 1, Uzbek students who are highly integrated into South Korea are more likely to stay in South Korea after graduation. It has two parts. One focus on social integration, other one focus on economic integration. Next is home country factors have a significant positive influence on the decision of Uzbek students to stay in South Korea after graduation. But finally, individuals with high religiosity level are less likely to stay in South Korea after graduation. As for the instruments, my dependent variable is independent to stay. It was measured by 4 items, which is level of desire to stay permanent or not, their intention after graduation, and their given time frame for going back home. Social integration measured with 3 items, which is hangout habits, number of contacts, and level of social connection. Home-related factors are the 4 obstacles, which are lack of networks, reverse culture shock, lack of home country experience, and low salaries back home. Economic integration was measured with 2 items, level of income, employment status, and finally religiosity index measured with level of religiosity and the frequency of their praying times. I ran the model 6 times to see the overall effect of each variable to my model. As you can see in the model 6, social integration and home-related factors, they are significantly and positively correlated with the dependent variable, while economic integration and religiosity index shows negative correlation but with a high p-value. I also ran the model comparison test to see the value of adjusted R-square. Up until the model 4, the adjusted R-square value was increasing, but starting from the model 6 and model 5, it started to decrease. I tested for the assumption for multicollinearity, and our values shows no evidence for multicollinearity issues. And finally, we have the following results. Strong social integration turns out to be an important deciding factor for students' decision to remain in South Korea after graduation. People who hang out with their Korean friends more and have more contacts tend to feel socially connected to the society. Belonging encourages them to stay here longer. As for the economic integration, such as earning high income or having a full-time job does not necessarily correlate with the student's decision to remain in South Korea after graduation. Perhaps this can be explained by the findings of the interview, which highlights the financial vulnerability might be the cause of such high economic integration. When it comes to the home-related factors, which are expected challenges on return, such as low salary, lack of home experience, losing networks over time, and a reverse culture shock, all combined strongly discourage students to return home immediately after graduation. As for the religion index, it shows negative correlation with a dependent variable, as we expected. However, the model comparison analysis and linear regression results indicate that it's not an important or useful variable to predict the return migration behavior of the students. Although hypothesis 3 was not supported, I still believe that religion might have a secondary impact on dependent variable by affecting other variables, which was not covered in this research. Finally, we have some interesting findings. For example, degree and GPA variable both have a negative correlation with the students' intention to stay. This can be a good news for Uzbekistan, as the students with a high level of education and superior academic performance are less likely to remain in South Korea after graduation. This was the end of my presentation. Thank you.
I think your study is very interesting. Go to this economic integration part, testing results. Economic integration. You describe the result sentence. Economic.
Yeah.
In the explanation, you mentioned about economic integration does not necessarily correlate with the student decision. Actually, you must not use correlate in this context. You are using regression. Regression clearly shows the direction of influence, right? It's not correlation, it's about the causality from independent to dependent. So do not use that kind of expression.
Okay.
Influence, right? Influence. And then, actually, what was your null hypothesis in hypothesis 2? In some sentence, you are said hypothesis 2 is rejected. What's hypothesis 2?
My hypothesis.
Number 2.
Actually, it was sub hypothesis of the hypothesis 1.
1B. 1B.
I have like main hypothesis, which is integration, and integration I divided into 2 sub hypotheses, like checking for social integration and for checking for economic integration.
So it's very confusing. Normally, I don't know how in international studies, we are using the null hypothesis. Parameter is 0. So by rejecting the null, we conclude there is some statistically significant outcome, right? Hypothesis by rejecting the hypothesis.
Yeah.
But you said hypothesis 2 is rejected. That means no influence on the decision. Right? So normally, I think it's a different way of your research conclusion. Hypothesis sentence is rejected, or the null hypothesis, beta 2 is 0 is rejected.
Okay,
That's
I
different
need to
meaning.
clarify
The
this.
opposite meaning, right?
Yeah.
So, in either way, you must be very consistent. Make it clear. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I have a question. Is it if I ask?
Please, yes.
Yes, okay. So, on page, starting on page 23, you list, your comments, regarding various, informants. I think, is it on 23? Yes, I guess
Yeah.
basically starting there.
Yeah.
Okay, and I feel a little bit confused, because usually in qualitative research, then the research notes have to be split in at least, what would I say, like the log that you type up, or the typed version of your field notes has to be divided into at least 2 sections. One section would be your objective observations and the quotations that people actually said. So actual empirical facts. The other section should be your subjective reflection on the research experience and how your emotions may have colored the research, or your reaction, or the way the research was conducted. Okay, now here, you describe what is happening in the research, but you also include your subjective emotions.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're mixed together, so
Yeah.
I feel confused.
Actually, I wrote these notes, after you conducting the research, you have to write your notes quickly within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Actually, I wrote these notes without dividing my personal reflection and
your empirical facts.
Empirical facts.
They should have been divided.
Yeah, I'll in my final manuscript, maybe I'll
Okay.
separate.
Yeah, I am sorry that I didn't check that I didn't actually look at your field notes to make sure that you were doing that then.
Professor Lee Daejun is on Zoom, so you can click on the bottom. Comments from that.
It's not showing. That's weird.
Where is he?
He hide it here.
Okay.
무슨 이대준 교수님 들리세요? 이대준 교수님 마이크가 꺼졌어.
Just call Professor.
Professor,
리?
if you have any question, let me know.
We can get it later.
I think I'll ask him later.
Yeah. Thank you for your